Welcome to It's Not Really About Dance, a podcast on all of the things we're learning about raising healthy, happy, and wholesome kids and teenagers in today's world through the context of competitive dance. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Beth, and we believe that competitive kids' activities are about way more than performance or awards. They're about teaching resilience, humility, confidence, and heart. Each episode, we'll use the context of dance to dive into real talk, practical tips, and stories to inspire you to parent with purpose.
Hello, Sarah. How are you today? I'm great. How are you? How's life? How's dance momming?
Good. You know, we're on a holiday week right now, so slowing down the pace a little bit.
It's lovely.
Just taking it all in. Did not set my alarm this morning, so that is very nice. How about you guys?
Same. I'm here for the rest and the not driving people all over. Well, that's not true. I'm still driving people everywhere, just not to the dance studio.
Just the social activity.
Engagements. Yes.
We're like a year away from having a driver in our mix. I'm hoping that my kid will just drive your kid around.
I'm also hoping that. She is hoping that too.
Yes. Okay. Well, today we are going to be having what we call a phase related episode. And so when we say phases, this actually goes back to our fascination that we have with the way kids learn and grow at different stages and ages. And actually a book and a whole project that I came upon several years back and that I use in my work and in my ministry that's just related to the social and emotional development. I mean, also the physical and intellectual, but I tend to lean more into the social and the emotional development of kids at different ages. And we think that this translates into the dance world a whole lot.
It absolutely does. You gave me a copy of this book many years ago, and I go back and I read through like those sections of the kids I teach because it helps me with some perspective kind of freshly at the start of the year going into interacting with them.
Yeah, it's cool. And we'll go ahead and actually link that whole project and that whole study in our show notes if you're interested in learning more about this, because they have a ton of resources. You can actually buy a book that's like for each specific phase. It's like parenting your kid at this age or leading a kid at this age. It's really amazing. They are not a sponsor. We have no sponsors at this point in our podcast journey. So this is something we actually do believe in.
Yes, we're not getting paid for this. We just like it a lot.
Yes, for sure. And so this one, we felt like though, before we really dive into all of the like emotional phases, it might be helpful to start out with the dance world and how they group ages, because it doesn't actually match up. And so there's a lot of kids that are in different phases being grouped together in the same age group in the dance world. So helpful to know like how age groups typically work in competitive dance. I would love to hear more if any of you listening. We know that we have some soccer parents and some baseball parents who have started listening to our podcast and have just shared with us that this resonates a lot with what you guys are doing. So if you have insights to how this translates into your context, we love to hear that stuff too. But yeah, so do you want to start us off, Sarah, with maybe just like telling like the broad strokes of the way ages are typically grouped in competitive dance?
Yes, absolutely. So these can also, caveat, be called different things depending on your studio or what dance convention you're at. So whatever name we say is sort of a general term that we see most places, but it could be switched out for some other little cutesy name depending on who it is. So
Not it can be, it will be.
It will be. Yes, it will be. Okay, so the first is the minis, which this is what our studio calls this age group. And a lot of dance competitions call this too. Although some events have slightly different subdivisions than what your studio might call them. So I'll get to that in a minute. But minis are basically ages 5 to 8-ish, like early to mid elementary, probably kindergarten up to even third grade or so are minis. Juniors are about 9 to 12, so upper elementary and early middle school. Teens, 13 to 15. It's sort of that bridging between upper middle school, could skew into high school age depending on the event. We have seen events where the teen category doesn't exist at all. And then you have the seniors, which are usually 16 to 18 ish in high school. But like I said, sometimes that teen group is not even there if it's a smaller event and it's like 13 to 18 is all together in the senior group. It just depends. Sometimes we have been to events where there is a group even younger than the minis, and that's the one that tends to be called something
Cute.
cutesy, like jazzy sparkle stars or whatever. And that can be like that's preschool. I'd say four, sometimes 4 to 6, 4 to 5.
Or 7. I mean, it changes every time you go to
Yes.
something. So I'd say most events have, like, kind of 4 main age groups,
Hmm.
and so the easiest way to kinda name them for us is, like, minis, juniors, teens, seniors, because that's kinda the most common, but yes, depending on how big the event is, there's a lot of subdivisions of those or, like, blurring of age lines.
Yes. Well, and I mean, they're going to cap rooms at a certain, you can only have so many bodies in a room at an event, but they also don't want it to feel empty. So, like you said, based on how many kids are there, how big of an event it is, they usually divide it up into 4 groups.
One thing that can be a little bit weird is that so these are not grouped at all by school grades.
Right.
And so, like, because they use that January 1st cutoff in dance, for example, my daughter, my youngest is now 9.
That's crazy.
I know. So,
Today.
yes, the day that this is posting is her birthday. So my 9-year-old, she has a friend who's only 2 weeks younger than her, but because it's, like, across the new year,
Mm.
they are sometimes in the same grouping and sometimes in different ones. Because, for example, if this year there's a 5 to 8-year-olds and a 9 to 12-year-olds,
Hmm.
my daughter will be in the 9 to 12-year-olds group. And
Yep.
her best little buddy, whose birthday is 2 weeks later and they're in the same school grade, will be in the 5 to 8-year-olds group.
We have run into that with my older daughter. We've been to an event for several years that they do it differently, and their cutoff is June 1st. And same thing, my daughter has a May birthday, and one of her best friends has a birthday after June 1st. And like some events, they will be together if it's the January 1st cutoff, but if it's the June 1st cutoff, they get separated because then for that event, they count as different ages. So it's weird.
Yeah, and, like, we'll go to another event where they'll put 7 to 9-year-olds together, and they'll call them petites, and so
And
then they will be together. But in your studio, one thing that we have discovered, and I think this is very common, is that we've been describing, like, competitive events and how they group, but often at your studio there will be less concern for the actual ages of the kids and more for the skill level. So sometimes they're called companies or classes, like however they're grouped. I've seen, like, I know, I'll just speak about the studio I grew up in as a kid. The mini company was anybody who was a relatively short young person and was an advanced dancer. Like, so they could range anywhere from, like, you know, 6-year-olds up to, like, 11-year-olds, and they would be in the mini company. And I know we even change from year to year at our studio how this
yes.
translates. Like, my oldest daughter was still a mini at age 11 in our studio's groupings, but then her dance classes were in something like junior or teen company
Hmm.
classes. The bottom line here is that nobody in the dance world can get on the same page about what we are going to call anything.
And don't assume that what your kid is listed as at the studio is what they will also be listed as for a competitive event, because we've run into friends who are newer to that who get confused. When you look at a schedule and it has what the minis are doing and your kid is that age range, but at the studio they're called a junior, it's confusing as to which group they're in.
Sure. In fact, I'd say the majority of our quote junior company at our studio are considered minis at most events that they go to.
But not my daughter. Because the older ones are not.
Oh,
She's junior across the board. But even like, okay, here's another example. Both of my children have May birthdays, but my oldest daughter, usually her company level at the studio was something different than what she was listed at competitive events. But my younger daughter's is almost always listed as the same.
it's
So,
just the way it kind of landed with the kids she's grouped with and
yes.
stuff.
So it means nothing. Bottom of the
Do
into the
your
line.
homework every time you're going somewhere. Like, pull up a website, read the fine print about ages because it will change every weekend for you.
Yes.
Like, my 9-year-old, I actually made these notes. I was like, okay, so my 9-year-old can be called a mini, a junior, or a petite, depending on where we are. My 11-year-old, sometimes called a junior, sometimes called a preteen. They'll throw that in. Sometimes she's even called a teen, and she's 11. So it's like
Yeah.
the word teen would make you think that it's a number in the
That ends in
teens,
teen,
but she's
but it's
11.
not.
Sometimes she's a teen. And my 14-year-old, sometimes called teen, sometimes called senior, just depending where we are. I saw one event last year where they had a category called pre-senior. I was like, that's the most confusing thing I've ever
And
seen.
we've also been to events that have pre-pro as a level, which is like
Pre-professional,
pre-professional,
which
which is
is what
like
a lot of studios call their whole program is a pre-professional program. So it's very
that's
confusing.
something that we don't our studio doesn't do that. So I see that and I'm like, huh? These kids, what are they doing?
It's like some studios are like their studio is putting kids on a track
To become
to
professional
become
dancers.
professionals. We went to
Or
a summer intensive this year where like kids from ages 7 and up were even on the recreational track or the pre-professional
Mhm.
track. Like you choose your track.
Sure.
And so again,
Basically, that's your commitment level.
the words mean different things at all different
It would
times.
be great if the dance community could get on the same page about this, even if it was just the competition companies. Be a lot less confusing.
When we become president, right? This is what we will do.
Put that on our
You know how
platform.
like 9-year-olds will like have those little like, when I become the president, what
Uh-huh.
would I do? This is ours.
This is ours.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and shift into what we really want to talk about today, which is just how all of this aligns with and supports the actual needs of kids. So, in this whole phase study, which I just really love, we've kind of separated out how different ages have a different core question they're kind of asking and looking for this need to be met for them emotionally. And the way I often describe it to my leaders that I train for like what I do is we have an opportunity if we're leading kids in this age to help them find this need met in them. And this will be one less thing that they are in therapy for later. Basically. So it's like these are the kinds of gaps that get created along the way that we have to kind of untangle when we get to be adults, but we have a chance to kind of meet them. And one thing we found is that like on our dance competition team, I was blown away by the way our kids were having opportunities to have these needs met in a way that they couldn't if we weren't in a competitive activity. And so we just kind of want to highlight some of that. So we're going to do this just little snapshots, maybe like just a couple of minutes each about each phase of childhood from we're going to start with kindergarten. Now, I could talk about this from babies all the way up, but I think the audience for this, if we're in a competitive kids activity, typically is not much younger than kindergarten. So we're going to start with that.
No
So,
competitive dancing babies.
I mean, it's probably, I guarantee that exists somewhere.
That's like a human prop.
Yes. So at the kindergarten and first grade phase, this kind of core question that they're asking in themselves is, do I have your attention? Think about like they've gone from being a big fish in a small pond, being in a preschool setting or in their home, and then all of a sudden they're like in big school. And so they're paying attention to who notices me. And in a competitive activity, it's a great opportunity for them to be noticed for something positive and to be recognized. I know I experienced this with my oldest when she was in kindergarten and first grade. I've shared this in one of our earlier episodes that she was being noticed both in gymnastics and in dance. And
Mhm.
they were kind of saying, like, hey, you've got something in you, you should take this step into this more advanced class. And like it it fed something in her of feeling like, wow, somebody sees me, they notice me, I'm allowed to shine. And also like they can kind of at this age, this is a great chance for them to just get on the stage in front of a bunch of people and shine. And while we talk about that and think that it sounds scary, I have been so surprised because I work with a whole lot of kids in my work, and I see some of them that like go to our studio. And there will be kids that like seem super distracted, like not focused, like almost like you would think they would be the ones that wouldn't be confident and would be able to like stand on a stage. And then we go see them in their little dance performance in the spring, and they, like, are doing the moves, are performing because they got a chance to practice it over and over and over again, and it's this, like, one avenue where they kind of can hone in on a way to shine and to stand out and to be seen and recognized. So it's sort of like if they're at that age, maybe I don't know if you can, Sarah, but I can't think of a time that I've encountered a kid in that kinda kindergarten, 1st grade stage that doesn't, like, when affirmed for their performance, just really, like, grow in a lot of confidence.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I taught 1st grade for a few years, and this is the age kid where they're always like, "Watch me," like, they want you to watch them do whatever this thing is that they feel proud of. It may not actually be impressive, but they're proud of it, and they like knowing that you are watching them and affirming them, like you said. So
Mm,
it just gives
mhm.
them that space to feel, like you said, affirmed and seen and valued, regardless really of what the outcome actually is. If they placed in first or not, they just liked that they had an audience and got to do something that made them feel proud of themselves.
Yeah, I know my middle daughter is, of my 3 kids, probably the one who's typically a little less confident about being on a stage or talking in front of people or having people notice her, and I really attribute, like, our experience with dance with the level of confidence that she is able to have at all in other contexts today as a 6th grader, because I think we kind of allowed her to be seen in an organized way and be recognized when she was young, and it built that being, like, normal and not so scary kinda thing too. So,
Yeah, kinda
yeah.
helps them overcome some fears or things that maybe they have and try things out in a way that is relatively safe and protected, even though they might feel nervous about it, it kinda can help them overcome that early.
Yeah, yeah, really great. Okay, you wanna talk about the next phase?
Yes, so next phase will be, like, 2nd and 3rd graders, and they're moving past that, "I want attention, are people looking at me?" into developing, do they have what it takes? They are trying to find avenues and ways to develop and broaden their competence, so knowing what they are good at and what they are contributing. Being in competitive dance kinda helps them with this because, I mean, I know at our studio, this is not true of other studios, but kids this age at our studio do not have solos, but I do think a kid this age having a solo would be a great place for them to be able to develop this competence, like knowing that they are capable and able to do these things on their own, or if it's not in a solo situation, like with a group, like knowing that they have something to offer, that they are competent, and that they are able to contribute their own unique, personality or what they're good at. It's kind of getting beyond just the, like we said a minute ago, them being unaware of if what they are doing is good or not good, just that they did it, to them being aware that they did something well and they worked for it.
Sure, at this age, they really start to notice differences in each other, and they can see,
Yes.
like they can start to see, like, "Oh, that friend is really good at acro, and that friend is really good at turns, and that friend has really good stage presence, and they can act," and that kind of and, like, discovering which things, like, they're good at, and maybe even the ones that they want to become good at, and they can set goals and, like, accomplish them.
Yes, I know that my older daughter, this was the age that she jumped into competitive dance, and I think that just being in that new world exposed her to a lot of dance things that she didn't know existed. I mean, even outside of our studio, going and watching other groups perform, it let her see what all was possible and really gave her this broader perspective of things that she could work towards, even at this young of an age that she definitely would not have come up with those types of goals for herself if it were not for competitive dance.
Yeah, okay. So our next phase are 4th and 5th graders, and this is maybe my favorite phase. So 4th and 5th graders, their kind of core question they're asking is, do I have friends? So this is the age that they're looking for a tribe. What's different is this is not just their friends are not just the kids of their parents' friends anymore, but
Mhm.
like they're friends that they have chosen. And so obviously, this one's probably pretty self-explanatory. If they're looking for a tribe, then, like, their dance team, their soccer team, their where they go to do theater, whatever their competitive thing that they're in is becomes their tribe. And at this age, that this is who they end up wanting to do birthday parties with. This is who they end up wanting in our contexts, even if they're like, "Hey, I wanna do a Bible study group." These are the people they want to do it with because they've just developed this tribe, some friendships that are like their people.
Yes, both of my girls at this age would have told you that their dance friends were their best friends. They were a lot closer with their dance friends than they were with school friends because of this exactly. Okay, so next we are kind of getting into middle school, 6th grade. I also very much enjoy 6th graders. They want to think that they are big and grown, but they are not at all, and they know that they are not deep down in their hearts, and these kids, they're starting to enter that sort of awkward self-conscious phase, but they are really focused on their personal journey and knowing who do they like who are they getting along with, and who likes them back. So, this is just
And
sort
not
of
like in a
not in a
romantic
romantic way,
way.
no, this is, like, deepening that tribe of friendships from the previous phase, wanting to find people who are interested in the same things that they are interested in, and people who are going to accept them for what they like and who they are.
Yeah, I've found that this can be a really confusing age at school. Like,
Yes.
friendships change weekly. And so, for both of my older 2 girls, because I've now have 2, like, my middle one is in 6th grade now. Um, their team is kind of their stable place.
Mhm.
So, like, those are the friendships, they're already an established tribe. And it can be kind of their life source when everything else around them is changing and is confusing, and just kind of help them weather the ups and downs of middle school to have people that are a little more consistent and that they've already started to make connections with prior to this phase.
Yes, it's like they're safe people. They know that they're not going to suddenly not wanna be their friend anymore because they said the wrong thing or wore the wrong thing or whatever other shallow reasons friendships can fall apart at this age. Their tribe of people on their team are their safe people.
Now, they'll have normal middle school moments, of course,
Yes.
within that team, but typically they can weather those storms better than the school friends can.
Especially because part of a team, it's not as easy for them to just not be around each other anymore. They're forced to kind of have to work through those problems because they still have to be together and work together as a team.
Sure. Man, what a great life skill, to learn how to do that, like to have conflicts with people, but like you still know you love each other. So you're going to stick it through kind of thing. Okay. So then 7th and 8th grade, this is a life stage I do not want to go back to personally.
This is the stage my oldest daughter is in, on the tail end of.
And so their core question that they're asking here is, who am I? And what they're trying to do is find what makes them them and
Mhm.
makes them unique. And so their team, their sport, their, dance or whatever they're involved in is a great part of that that can kind of help give them a piece of who they are and what makes them unique. I know my oldest, when she kind of went through this phase, she found dance to be a place that kind of helped set her apart and made her who she was. When other kids her age were just hopping from sport to sport and activity to activity, trying to find the people they connect with, the thing that they're good at that's going to like become their thing. And they were wandering a little aimlessly. And again, a lot of ups and downs. I was just really grateful that we had gotten started earlier and she felt really solid and that was just secure in the dance thing. And I think it kind of helped her not have as much of the FOMO that kids go through in middle school when she was like seeing on social media that people are like posting that they're all hanging out together and she's not there. She's like, well, I have dance, so I don't have time to go to that thing anyway.
Right. She didn't feel like she was missing out on something.
It just, I mean, not that you don't ever feel those
Sure.
things, but I just feel like she had a place that kind of already gave her a little bit of her what makes me me and what makes me unique. And she felt confident in that so that she wasn't having to like grab at strings and try out all these different personalities per se that they have to do at that age. And I've also seen kids at this age, like, jump into our team, like, starting at this age and experience the same thing. Like, when they are searching for who they are and what makes them them, they
Finding it.
find it here. Yeah.
That's kind of what my thoughts are with my older daughter who's in 8th grade now. Last year, especially, having a place where she had, her competition director last year was just amazing at seeing kids and what makes them them and their unique abilities and strengths. And so my older daughter is one that sometimes has a hard time finding those things in herself. And so having dance as a place where she had that teacher speak life into her and to like point those things out to her and dance friends too, because we're fortunate that our studio is so encouraging and those kids have been brought up to do that for each other. But to have a place where people are helping her to find those things about herself so that she is not grappling with it, like even in the context of dance where she might have a tendency to lean towards finding the negative or the things that she can't do, having a space where regularly people are pointing out what she is good at and lifting her up and helping her to believe in those things in herself. And so now that she is in 8th grade, halfway through at this point, I'm seeing a lot more of her being able to do that for herself. So it's like she had the support of people for so long that she's learned how to do this on her own, which is an amazing thing.
Very cool.
Okay, so now we're kind of getting into high school. So ninth graders, these kids are really trying to find out where do they belong. So we've talked about they have their tribe, they have figured out what they contribute to the tribe. So ninth grade, early high school kids are looking for an avenue to find a place where they are appreciated. They are looking for community. So like we've already talked about, people that see them, that know them, that appreciate them for what they bring to the table. You have a ninth grader, Beth. How have you seen this in her life?
Yeah, I would say like this is the year that it's really kind of clicked like where she fits in the ecosystem of the team. What's her part and her role? She's been given some leadership opportunities and some of those are organized and they're like official, like come to this thing and help with these younger kids or come to
Mhm.
this thing. And sometimes it's really organic. It's just like people going to her because they know she's a voice of wisdom or
Mhm.
asking her about her experience with certain things that she's done before and they may not have done before, and she's just starting to have a little bit more of a voice of authority amongst her peers and just the families around our studio. And I think that's really cool, like that they start to see that this isn't just for me, but I'm a part of shaping this culture here.
That's so empowering. And those are things that like we can try to provide that at home as parents as much as possible, but it means more to kids this age when they are getting it from somewhere else.
Sure. And she gets it in some other places too, like at church, and I think, obviously at school. I mean, most of these kids probably have things like that. And they start to learn at this age like what are the places where I'm the leader and what are the places that I'm the follower? And like again, what a great life skill that we all have to learn as we go into different contexts. What is our like place and our role in that hierarchy or ecosystem of the people in that context? And it's kind of cool. I think what's neat about it being through a competitive team is it applies to a niche interest of theirs. So it's probably the closest thing to what it's going to feel like to be in the workplace one day.
Yes.
Like where it's like a thing that I have expertise in and I have interest in.
And they chose.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and we all have that in our jobs. I mean, there are things in my job that I feel like I am an expert in and can help other people, and other areas that I am not and have to seek out wisdom from other people. So, yeah, very cool life skill to be learning at 14.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for 10th graders, so their core question at this age is now, we haven't parented 10th graders, but we've watched a lot of 10th graders, and I have 10th, 11th, 12th graders that serve with me in my
Mhm.
job. And so I've looked at them up close. But the core question is like, why should I believe and why can't I? It's like a very boundary pushing stage. This is
Mhm.
the year they're getting driver's license and all that kind of
A
stuff.
little more freedom.
Yes. And so their competitive team is a place for them to challenge limits, clarify values, test what's true. What I've seen is kids this age start to kind of nitpick and question kind of the behind the curtain parts of the team. They start to see things with a little bit more adult eyes instead of just blindly like following everyone in
Mhm.
charge, and they start to question things. And sometimes kids in this, 16-year-old age will walk away because they feel like they can't trust wherever they are at this age. It sometimes happens. But what's cool is the ones that stick with it just develop an understanding of people being human and start to like see that even the leaders that they follow have strengths and weaknesses,
Mhm.
and you know they start to really solidify alignment with the people that they're aligning with and they're following, and it just prepares them to step into in their last couple years of high school being able to have a greater influence and being able to have more of a voice where they're still being shaped by this team when they're not quite launched from the nest yet. They've got a few more years, but they can just kind of hold the direction that they give in a healthier way with
Mhm.
discernment and maturity. And that's going to make them great employees in the future where they can like listen to bosses and like hold it as this is a human and I respect them. And how can I respect and follow them, but also have my own identity and my own voice?
Right. That if you don't agree with someone, it doesn't mean that you have to throw the whole thing away. You can see the value in that other person's opinion, and it doesn't have to be your opinion, and move on.
Right. And that you can learn from people that are imperfect.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So 11th graders, they're kind of getting towards the end of high school, but they have come through this kind of grappling with the people in charge and seeing behind the curtain and making sense of that. And these kids are wondering, their big question is, how can I matter? So they are figuring out how can they make an imprint in this place that they are involved. So taking those things that they maybe learned in the previous phase about what is important to them, what they value, and exhibit those skills and make their mark before they leave. I mean, I think kids at this age are aware that their time is running short, and it could be somewhere, a team that they have been involved in for a very long time. And they're kind of deciding what's the legacy that they want to leave behind. How can they lead the younger people involved in their team or studio? And what of themselves do they want to make an impact with before they move on to the next phase of life?
For sure. Yeah, they kind of get three things that so I feel like they're mastering their own skills at like the highest level possible.
Mhm.
I mean, this is where we're like hitting peak skill level with whatever they're doing, giving back to others, and then also just cultivating leadership skills that they're going to use and how to like work with people going forward. So, that's good. And then 12th graders, the last one that we've got, their big core question is, what will I do? And so they're really examining and discovering where they're headed next and what's their life going to look like beyond childhood. And so this one's pretty straightforward. If they're in a competitive context with a hobby or activity that they love, it's a crossroads and they're making a decision about what they want to do with their life and what experiences from this team are going to be actively and directly used in the next phase and which ones are going to be let go of
Mhm.
as part of their formative experiences that have shaped who they are as a human, but maybe not directly going to be used as a skill in the next few years. You never know. Things circle back
Yeah.
around.
Our studio, this makes me think about at the end of the season in May, our studio like highlights the seniors each year. And at the end of spring show, they bring all the seniors up front and they go down the line and they all get to say, what they're doing next, if they're going to college where, if they're going to continue pursuing dance. But they feature each senior on their Instagram page and they have this beautiful picture of them and the seniors get to like write a little quote or something and all of them, regardless of if they are pursuing dance post high school or not. Every single one of them has some kind of lesson or takeaway, something that dance gave them. And it's also like, it doesn't matter when they started dance.
Mhm.
Some of those girls started dancing when they were itty bitty and some jumped in later, but they all are taking away some really valuable life lessons. And I think it's so cool for them to see that. I know when my girls were younger, especially like when my older one was in that like fifth and sixth grade where just identity is such a struggle and you feel like they're just copying what their friends are doing all the time and kind of hiding parts of themselves that are valuable but maybe makes them feel different so they're squashing that down temporarily. Like seeing these seniors always made me feel like there was hope and it was like
I
what
know.
we're doing is good and my kids are going to get there too throughout this process.
Yes. So obviously, you can hear in us that we see hugely valuable life shaping happening at every stage. But what's interesting is sometimes I think as parents, and this is true in other contexts as well, besides doing competitive activities, but we sometimes we're trying to get parenting right and learn how to do it. So we figure out what the thing that the kid is seeking at this age is, and we try to pour into that. And then as soon as you figure it out, they've moved to a new phase.
Yep.
So that's true here too. And so just knowing that this activity serves a purpose for them when they're 5 that is very different from the purpose that it serves for them when they're 15.
Right. Which is the value in this, that it changes and morphs with what they need at each different phase without us having to jump to a different activity or do a different thing.
Also, though, like we mentioned at the beginning, they're not always grouped with the kids in the same phase as them. So, for we have some teachers that listen to this, keeping that in mind when you've got kids at different phases, parents, if your kid is grouped with kids in a totally different phase than they are, just being aware that that's going to translate into some little nuances that might feel strange to you, like the conversations that you're having with your kid. One example I thought of with this is so my 9-year-old is a third grader that dances with a lot of fourth graders. And so her core question is skill related. And so she is very much just trying to be the best and win and get the thing and accomplish the next thing.
Mhm.
Whereas most of the kids that are with her are more concerned about friend stuff. And I have noticed a little bit of a disconnect there,
Yeah.
and it's just reality when you've got kids in different phases that are grouped together.
Well, and your youngest is in some things with my younger daughter who is a fifth grader. I mean, she's full 18 months ahead of her, but just again, because of how they're grouped at the studio and the company, they're both in
Junior
junior
company.
company. So there is a really wide age range. But yes, so my younger one is very concerned with what are my friends doing? I mean, she's the most people person that you will meet. But when casting and stuff comes out, she is not concerned about what routine she is in. She wants to know, well, who's in it? Are my friends in it with me? Like that is her primary motivator at
Sure.
this phase. She doesn't even really care or pay attention to skills anymore. It's who is there? What's the what can I see the list of all the names of my friends and what they're in? That's what she wants to be in. So, yes, I think this grouping across phases can be a really great thing though.
Mhm.
With my older daughter, she tends to be one of the very youngest, if not the youngest person in her company. And I think she has the opportunity to learn a lot from her friends who might be in a different phase than her and just seeing how they handle and react to things versus maybe what her natural instinct or tendency would be because she is younger. So there is a lot of wisdom, I think, that can come out of them being in different phases in the same group. But you're right, it can cause some maybe awkwardness or confusion at times too.
Sure, they have examples to look to and friends to bring up on either end, but it's the fact that they have this little primary thing that they're seeking in themselves that's different, like, can feel like you're speaking different languages.
Yes.
Like, I know my oldest one as a ninth grader, she's looking at, like, what is her purpose in the group and how does it fit into the ecosystem of things? And then she has a cluster of eighth graders that are dancing with her who probably feel threatened by some of those things because they're still seeking what is their individual and
Mhm.
unique, like what makes them special. And so to see her in a leadership role could feel like a threat to them.
Mhm.
It's just like a lot of different things going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think my older daughter being on the tail end of that, she's kind of like bridging that gap into seeing like what she knows is making her unique and really kind of solidifying that with herself, and then how that is going to contribute to that group and community aspect. End of 8th grade, halfway through 8th grade, I can tell she's sort of in that middle transitional phase of like connecting those two things together. And I think it is really helpful to her for her to have an older friend like your daughter who she can see using her gifts to contribute to part of the group versus being focused on just herself and like what that looks like in her own life.
Right. Just becoming a little bit less self centered as
Yes,
they make that
as
bridge.
that maturity comes.
For sure. Okay. Well, that is a great little snapshot of all of that for us to have gone through today. So we will wrap this episode up in the same way that we always do. So I'm going to ask you, Sarah, if it's not really about dance, what is it about for you right now?
It is about taking back control over my house. We are very early Christmas decorators. I'm like day after Halloween. Halloween landed on a Friday this year. So, like that weekend, I pulled out all the Christmas stuff. I am ready for it to go away. Like, I need my house back. I need the clutter gone. I want all of the Christmas boxes and treasures that we have now accumulated that are piled up everywhere to be gone. My mom always said that it was bad luck if you still had your Christmas tree up after New Year's. I don't know where that came from, but in my mind, it has to all go away. So I am working very hard to be ready by tomorrow or at least a couple days into the new year to have our house like orderly and neat and, feels like we just need to have a reset and a fresh start. So I'm throwing things in the garage at a rapid pace. What's it about for you, Beth?
So for me, winter season, like we get past Christmas and it becomes birthday season in my house. So all three of my girls have winter birthdays. So we are in like birthday planning mode right now. And I've gotten better through the years. I used to wait and like just survive Christmas and then like, oh wait, I forgot my children have birthdays.
Like really soon.
Yeah, and then I just I've gotten better. So, especially my oldest and my youngest have birthdays very soon. My middle one is a few months away, so we have a little bit of time, but just planning out what all they want to do for their birthdays and that's like a whole thing. I feel like being a girl mom, like there's a lot of social dynamics of like having people feel included and not
Oh,
excluded
yes.
and
But
you
also
know
not spending $5,000 on a birthday party so that you could invite your 40 closest friends.
Yes, we've gotten to where we kind of more frequently will not do a party and do an experience of some sort. And so my oldest and youngest are both doing that this year. And so having fun kind of planning those things right now. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And then we don't have to feel like we're excluding a bunch of friends
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
just kind of for them.
We kinda do the same thing, but that's yeah, my girls being 4 days apart, and it always lands right at spring recital weekend too, so
It's so funny how families like I'm sure it makes sense that like families will have kids that all have birthdays like similarly
yeah.
seasoned, Like there's probably good explanation for that as far as like when you're less stressed and that all works out. But yeah, totally. It's so we have winter and y'all have late
Late
spring.
spring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, cool. Well, so I guess that's it for us for today. And we are excited to go into the new year with you guys. We'll be back in the new year with lots of new fun stuff. We're going to be doing our next episode will be the first of our virtue series. So, like, talking about it's not really about dance, it's about, and we fill in the blank with one character trait that we're trying to shape our kids into. So, tune in next time for that in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, we hope you all have a happy new year. Share this with any educator friends or parents that you feel like would be encouraged by understanding the different phases and how all of this works. You can follow us on Instagram at Not Really About Dance and continue to listen wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the places. Share with a friend, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye.
Bye.